Hey y'all, it's Mary from Mostly Mary and Quite Contrary, and I'm coming to you today with another true crime video. The case that I'm going to cover today is the Kendrick Johnson case. Throughout the video, I'm going to refer to him as KJ, because that's what his family referred to him as, and it's just a little bit easier than saying the full name every time. So, if you haven't heard about this case, it's been dubbed the case of the boy rolled up in the gym mat because that's how he was found. So, without further ado, I will get right into it. So, Kendrick Johnson, KJ, was found rolled up in an old gymnasium. Okay, let me start over because that didn't sound great. I apologize. Here we go. KJ was found rolled up in a wrestling mat, deceased. He was found in an old gymnasium inside Lowndes High School, which was the high school he attended. The high school is located in Valdosta, Georgia. KJ was reported missing by his father, Kenneth Johnson, to Lowndes County authorities on January 10th, which was several hours before the body of KJ was found. On January 11th, 2013, the body of KJ was found inside a rolled up gym mat that was in a vertical position, so it was upright sitting. Let's see here. This case would now be dubbed as the boy in the gym mat case by media. What we know about the scene and how his body was found. His body was discovered by students who had climbed. Let me set my notes up. There we go. Sorry, guys. Okay. His body was discovered by students who had climbed up on other gym mats to the top. It was like a cluster of gym mats in the gym. They set them all in the corner. I'll insert pictures throughout the video when I edit it and stuff. Anyways, they took the old gym mats and they rolled them up and they put them in a cluster, like in the corner of the gymnasium. And the gym mats were vertical, upright, and they stood about 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide. KJ was found head first in the center of one of the vertical mats. This essentially means he was in a headstand position. So, his shoes were off and tucked behind his knees in the gym mat. It also appeared to me, by looking at the picture, that his socks were half off. They were loose. Okay, you know, like athletic socks that are long and white and they go up higher, not the anklets, the higher ones. He appeared to be wearing those, but in the pictures, his sock was kind of half off. So, I'll insert a picture here and let you guys know what that looks like. But yeah, I don't know if that's from him trying to get out, maybe. That could be why his shoes were behind his knees, too. I'm not sure, but that's what it appeared to me. Hang on, I gotta turn my page, guys. I just have notes in case I forget and stuff. Okay. The scene and how his body was found. We also know that there was a pool of blood on the ground and a shoe above where KJ's head would have been positioned. So, if this were the gym mat, sitting upright, he was in it this way. On the floor, under his head, which would have been like here-ish, there was a pool of blood, and there was a single shoe. Now, I'm confused. I don't know if that was another person's shoe that he was going in head first to reach and he fell in, or what happened. Because his shoes were behind his knees. So, I don't know. The pooling of blood is common whenever somebody is in that type of position, again, vertical, for an extended amount of time. The blood's going to rush down and they're going to start bleeding from their orifices, so their nose, their mouth, their ears, etc. So that's why there's pooling of blood. Okay. One of his arms were stretched above his head. So again, I'm going to refer to this. His head would be here, his body. One arm was down, like he was reaching, and then the other was kind of like across his chest in the gym mat. So it appeared that he was reaching for that shoe. Okay, now we're going to talk about the scene. A 15-minute video and nearly 700 photos taken by the sheriff's investigators in Lowndes County document a horrific scene. KJ's body, dressed in jeans, a layered orange and white t-shirt, because of the temperatures inside the mat and inside the old gymnasium. He had a lot of facial bloating. His blood pooled, which, like I said, some of which poured out of his body, soaking his dreadlocks and spilling onto the floor. It also got on his shirt and stuff like that. There were streaks of blood on a nearby wall, but according to investigators, it was not found to be Johnson's blood. What I found interesting was that the sneaker that was under his head in the pooled blood, they said appeared to have no blood on it. I'll insert a picture. To me, it looks like there may be some blood on it that's dried, but I'm not 100% on that. They said that there was no blood on the shoe, but this whole investigation was botched up, so we'll get to that later in the video. Okay, meanwhile, Copus said there appeared to be no blood on the sneaker that was found above KJ's head in the pool of blood. A pair of orange and black shoes were found a few yards from KJ's body, and they had a substance on them that looked like blood, but investigators said that the stains weren't blood. Also, the shoes were not collected as potential evidence. The same went for a hoodie sweatshirt found feet away. So there was a lot of evidence in this crime scene that wasn't treated as evidence. And a lot of this crime scene was breached, and I'm going to get into that. Okay. Copus said he can't explain how the investigators handled items found in the gym. This is my common sense on crime scene handling. And you folks can chime in the comments and let me know what you think. I'm stating this because my dad is a retired cop and deputy sheriff, and my mom was a probation officer, a juvenile probation officer, so I was raised in a law family. So I know a little bit about law. And anybody, again, could know this from common sense, because if you've seen CSI or whatever, I know not a lot of things on that are exactly right, but there are some things that are. When you first come up into a crime scene as an investigator, the first thing you do is secure that scene. How do they secure that scene? They tape it off. They put crime tape up so that strangers can't come onto the scene and people who aren't needed can't come onto the scene and track through and disturb potential evidence. There's usually an investigator standing at the tape, asking for identification for people that are involved in the investigation to let them go past the tape. They did not do that at this scene. The gymnasium was not secured in any way. So, that's the number one mess up they did. Number two, whatever is in an area of the body at a crime scene, you collect that as evidence. So, the hoodie should have been collected as evidence. The shoes should have been collected as evidence. The blood on the wall should have been swabbed and collected as evidence. The reason that they do that is because, as an investigator, even if you happen upon a scene that looks like it was accidental or it was a suicide or whatever, you still need to treat that scene like it's a crime scene, because there may be things telling in the evidence that show you that it wasn't just an accident. And they did not do that in this case. And some of the things that they did collect into evidence were breached. They had collected something that was in a sealed bag, and somebody opened the sealed bag. So it was contaminated. I mean, that would have got thrown out of court. So those are ways that they messed up the crime scene, in my opinion. Number three, you compile a list of witnesses, like friends, of events happened in this gym, etc. And you would find out what events. This was an old gym that they didn't use, but however, they did use it. They allowed kids to play basketball in it and kind of just goof off in it and stuff like that. So any kid that has been in that gym should have been questioned. The principal should have been questioned. There were kids in the gym on the video that were playing ball when KJ was in there the last time he was seen. You can see him. And I think I can insert a part of the video, but I'm not sure because of copyright. So if it's not in here, I apologize. But if you look it up, you can see it. It's just footage. But you can see him in the corner of the video. The kids are here playing basketball. He comes in a door, walks this way, and then goes off frame and walks that way, which is probably he was walking towards the gym mats in the far corner, because there wasn't a camera on that either. So yeah, those kids should have been questioned in case there was foul play. My conclusion on the scene is it was severely mishandled. Basic protocol wasn't followed. The scene, whatever evidence was there, had been compromised because there were people coming in and out of the scene, walking all over, disturbing stuff that they shouldn't have been disturbing. There could have been evidence on the floor, for all we know. There was blood on the wall that was supposedly not related, but they didn't swab it, so we don't know. Items that had been unsealed, as I mentioned before, compromising the evidence. Also, the scene itself was tampered with before detectives arrived. When detectives arrived, the mat that had been upright was laying down on his side, on its side. I don't know who did that. It didn't say in any of the research that I've done, so I don't know if school staff did it, if kids did it, maybe thinking they could get him out. I don't know, but that was compromised. Again, they should have checked the mat for handprints, and they didn't do that either. So, like I said, the mat was taken from a vertical position and laid flat. Sorry guys about my arm. So, what the investigators and coroner hypothesized happened. They hypothesized that KJ had fallen into the mat while looking and reaching for a shoe. that he became stuck and died after not being able to get out. I did find a video that demonstrates a boy about the same size as KJ getting into one of those gym mats. And then they flip it upright so that the boy's on his head and he screams. It is really difficult to hear him screaming. If there were kids playing basketball, you probably could not hear it. They lay the mat flat and he can't get out of it. And he said within minutes he started sweating. It got really hot in there. So, back to what they hypothesized. I just needed to add that. That he became stuck and died after not being able to get out. 3 students told investigators that it was common for students to store their shoes and belongings inside the gym mats or behind them so they didn't have to put them in a locker. A student at the school also said that he shared a pair of Adidas shoes with KJ. I don't know. That confuses me. How are you going to share shoes with somebody? Like, I have no idea what that's about. I mean, I don't know. I had all girls and they shared clothes and stuff and shoes, but they're sisters. Like, I don't know. Anyways, he stated that after gym class, KJ would always go over, jump up on mats, and toss the shoes into the middle of the hole. A few notes and questionable things to me. KJ was found not wearing shoes, but his shoes were in the mat behind his knees. Again, if he shared shoes with somebody, that doesn't make sense to me. And I believe the shoes in the picture were not Adidas, so that's another question that I have. Another shoe was found in the blood pool at the top of his head. That was a question for me. Which again, if he was reaching for maybe another student's shoe, that could have happened. I'm sorry, my door got open. Anyways, that could have happened. Hang on one second, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. We were discussing the shoe. Did a friend toss the shoe in, and was KJ trying to get it for that friend? Again, that's a possibility. If so, where are the witnesses? Someone had to see him fall in. Why didn't his peers notice him missing and ask a teacher or a school employee? When I was in high school, if one of my friends were there earlier and they weren't there later, then we would ask each other, we would ask teachers, the principal, what's going on? Did they go home early? Because we were concerned. So why didn't anybody do this in this case? I mean, I don't know how big that high school was, but regardless, friends should have noticed and questioned it, especially the people in the gym. I mean, if he was always in the gym and they saw him walk in, but they didn't see him walk out, then that would have kind of bothered me. So yeah. Next, we're going to talk about info on a dead body and decomposition. The reason that we're going to go over this briefly is because some of the autopsy photos, I feel like this stuff is important information to know so that you understand the autopsy photos and the condition that the body was when they found it. So, what is human decomposition? Somebody may ask. It's a natural process involving the breakdown of organ tissue after death. The rate of human decomposition varies due to several factors, including weather, temperature, moisture, pH, and oxygen levels, causes of death and body position. But all human bodies follow 4 stages of decomposition. The first stage of decomposition is autolysis, and I'm going to include these in the video written out in case I mispronounce anything. So, The first stage was autolysis. The second is bloat. The third is active decay. I'm sorry, my dog bumped the camera. And, stop. Sorry. And the last is skeletonization. Human decomposition begins around 4 minutes after death. Keep in mind that this process is only what happens if the body remains undisturbed. A body that has been embalmed or is inside a casket, that can delay decay for years or decades. So that's important to know. Let's talk about pallor mortis, stiffness of death. This causes muscle stiffening 3 to 6 hours after death, reaching its peak at around 12 hours. Small blisters filled with nutrient-rich fluid begin to appear on organs and the skin's surface. The body will appear to have a sheen due to ruptured blisters. The skin's top layer will loosen. This is sometimes called skin sloughing. After 3 days, the body begins to loosen up as bloat and decay begins. In the autopsy photos that I'm going to add in this video, you will see both the bloat and you will see some skin sloughing. Hang on 1 second, guys. I gotta flip my page. Again, I always have notes to fall back on in case I forget something. Liver mortis, or hypostasis, post-mortem livivity. I can't say it right. Livity. I'll put it on there. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just having a moment. A passive process of blood accumulating. I'm sorry. This is not funny. I was laughing at myself not being able to pronounce that word. Okay. A passive process of blood accumulating within blood vessels and the dependent parts of the body as a result of gravity, causing discoloration of the skin, varies from pink to dark purplish. It begins to be apparent about an hour after death. It is well formed in 3 to 4 hours after death. The timing of liver mortis is highly variable. Hemolysis leads to fixation of lividity. Once fixed, lividity does not shift its distribution when the body position changes. The dermal manifestation of postmortem lividity may be absent in severe anemic, or in those who have died of a severe hemorrhage. It may not be apparent in the dark-skinned. The reason I wanted to include that is because on the autopsy photos, you can see some places on the skin that are appearing red. And I believe this is why. This kind of explains that. Again, you'll also see bloat and skin sloughing. A body decomposition timeline. I'm going to include a diagram of this, but I'm also going to discuss it too. About 24 to 72 hours after a death, the internal organs decompose. 3 to 5 days after death, the body starts to bloat, and blood containing foam leaks from the eyes and nose. Again, I mentioned you'll see this in the autopsy photos and in the crime scene photos. In this case, about 8 to 10 days after death, the body turns from green to red as the blood decomposes and the organs in the abdomen accumulate gas. Several weeks after death, nails and teeth fall out. And 1 month after death, the body starts to liquefy. Okay. Now let's go back to the case. The coroner autopsy and findings. A preliminary investigation concluded that KJ died from positional asphyxia and ruled the death as accidental. Autopsy done by Georgia Bureau of Investigation. So basically what they're saying is because his body was upside down in the mat, and the mat was so small that he couldn't breathe, and that's what killed him. Okay, a storm of emotions began. Of course, KJ's parents were not happy with the investigation and outcome. Johnson's family hired Dr. William R. Anderson with Forensic Dimensions in Heathrow, Florida, to do an independent autopsy. Autopsy findings. Dr. Anderson claimed that his findings indicate traces of blunt force trauma to the right cheek, neck, and soft tissues. These findings suggest his death was not accidental. After his opinion of the private after the opinion of the private pathologist was released, Johnson's family came forward and stated that they believed their son KJ had been murdered. Lawsuits and attorneys. The family retained an attorney, Benjamin Crump, on October 31st, 2013. The U.S. Attorney for Middle Georgia opened a formal review into the death. Meanwhile, Benjamin Crump's application to practice law in Georgia was not ruled on. He withdrew from representing the Johnsons. Sorry, guys. Johnson's family filed a legal action. I don't know why I can't talk today, guys. I am so sorry. Johnson's family filed a legal action to open the coroner's inquiry into KJ's death. When the judge in that case delayed a decision pending outcome of the U.S. District Attorney review, the family demanded that the governor of Georgia immediately authorize the inquiry instead. The Johnson family, together with the NAACP and other civil rights activists, held a rally at the state capitol in Atlanta. The governor's office released a statement saying that they would await the report of the U.S. Attorney. The family of KJ filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Lowndes County Board of Education, its superintendent, and the high school principal. The lawsuit alleged that KJ was violently assaulted, severely injured, suffered great physical pain and mental anguish, subjected to insult, and lost his life. The lawsuit didn't name names or races, but implied a race-biased dimension to the hypothetical assault. The reason I say hypothetical assault is because even though the private doctor that performed the second autopsy said that he thought he was assaulted, it's still ruled as an accident. So, okay. Back to it. It alleged that the defendants were negligent and violated KJ's constitutional right to equal protection based on race. It also alleges that the defendants ignored reports that KJ had been previously attacked by a white student. It alleges that KJ had previously been attacked during a bus trip 14 months prior to his death. The lawsuit further alleges that another student had a history of provoking and attacking KJ at school. It says the provocations took place in front of coaching, staff, and employees of the school after his mother had complained about previous attacks. The suit alleges that the school officials failed to properly monitor the activities of students throughout all areas of the campus and maintain properly functioning cameras. Basically, sorry guys, I had to scratch my elbow. So what his family was saying, this is all the litigation. I'm going to explain it, state the findings, and stuff like that. This is all litigation that happened all throughout the case. Wrongful death, family versus Lowndes County Board of Education superintendent, high school principal. In that case, I believe that the findings were unsubstantiated and that the family ended up having to pay court costs and pay several people in a suit later for defamation of character. But that came in a separate civil suit. So, just for the wrongful death that his family launched, that was found unsubstantiated. So, essentially, they didn't win that. Okay. Conspiracy to cover up murder. Kendrick Johnson's family versus 38 respondents. Defamation of character. Jackie and Kenneth Johnson sued for defamation and legal expenses. That case was dismissed, and a cost of $292,000 assessed against Johnson's family and their attorney. So basically, the case kind of reversed. They sued for defamation against all the other people in the suit, but the judge found that instead there wasn't defamation and that they needed to pay the people that they went after in that suit. So they lost that suit, basically. Again, if you guys have any questions about the legal proceedings or anything like that, feel free to look it up and look into the case. I'm not an attorney, and there was a lot of info to put together, so I tried not to miss anything. I tried to be thorough, but yeah. So that's basically it for this case. So my findings, this is what I think. I'm not sure if he was murdered or not. I understand why his family might worry about that if indeed he had been bullied and the school had ignored them reporting it and ignored things that happened and students weren't punished related to those things. But from the crime scene photos that I've seen and the autopsy photos that I've seen, I believe that it's plausible that he could have been reaching for a shoe, fell into the mat, and got stuck, and that foul play wasn't involved. Again, the crime scene was such a mess that something could have been hidden in there that we didn't know. Like if the blood on the wall was KJ's and they had swabbed it, then that would make it suspicious and not look like an accident, because why would blood spatter be on the wall? Some of the clothing may have had hairs or whatnot on it that could have foretold something. Had the cameras worked right there, we could have actually saw what happened. But because there weren't cameras working in that area, we couldn't. In the autopsy photos, there was, and I'm going to warn you here, if you get triggered by autopsy photos or by death and blood, then you need to go away right now and not watch the end of the video, because I'm going to include the autopsy photos and they're pretty graphic. There was a lot of bloat. There was redness on the skin. His skin started having sloughing on his face and his head. He also had some skin sloughing on his arm. There was a lot of blood. What skin sloughing is if a body is in a position where there's a very high humidity or moisture, which he could have been sweating inside the mat, it was really warm in the mat, your skin essentially starts to kind of come off, the top layer does. And that's what skin sloughing is. And it can look pretty bad. So just be warned. So essentially, I don't know. There were so many things that could have been had they handled the investigation correctly and actually taken evidence into play and just followed up on speaking with people, talking with people and stuff. I feel like they really dropped the ball on this, and my heart breaks for his parents, because they will never have closure. KJ's body was exhumed 2 times after the initial burial. So each time they had to exhume his body to have somebody else look at it, or because they pushed and the Georgia decided to actually inquire into it and redo the autopsy, they had to bury him again. And for Mom, that is heartbreaking. For Dad, that's heartbreaking. For anybody that loved him, that is just heartbreaking. And I can't even fathom how they're coping and how they have closure, because they don't know what happened to their son. They don't know if it was an accident. They don't know if somebody hurt him and somebody's responsible for his death. And not having closure is one of the worst things ever. So my heart genuinely breaks for them. And I do believe that the investigators should have been held accountable for the way they handled the crime scene and the fact that it wasn't done right. And it saddens me that the victim's family got charged for in lawsuits to pay people that mishandled the investigation and just to pay people in general that were involved. Shame on them for making them do that, because the crime scene was not handled correctly. And because of that, we may never know what happened to KJ. And he was somebody's son. He was loved and appreciated. He was 17 years old. He had a future ahead of him and a full life. His family will never see him fall in love. They'll never see him graduate, get married. They'll never know his children. That's just awful. Like, awful, awful. And my condolences go out to them. And shame on you, Georgia, for not holding investigators accountable that should have been held accountable for not doing things right. And I'm basically going to close my video out with that. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you have a blessed evening. I'm sorry for the delay in posting this video. I had a lot of things going on personally. Just in being a mom and having kids in high school and junior high and grown and stuff like that. Anyways, so thanks for watching. Feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. And don't forget to hit the little bell so that you're notified when I post new videos. Also, feel free to comment. I like to interact with comments. And feel free to share my video. Thank you very much. And don't forget to spread love. Bye.